Those of you who were here and remembered my second speech on Rudolf Nureyev, the ballet dancer, I talked about his Russian beginnings and how he grew up in abject poverty in tenement slum type conditions. And he was malnourished to the point where he suffered from those symptoms the rest of his life. Because of this early youth, it affected the way that he dealt with money the rest of his life. And when he would go out to eat with his friends, he would never take his wallet because he felt it was their privilege to dine with him. But I would think the same if I was Nureyev. He was had these 7 homes that I will talk about later in this video. And in these homes, only one of them was fully staffed. And they all required a big staff because they were big homes. So how did he man them? He had a retinue of society matrons that followed him around as slaves and did his housekeeping and would cook quite often every night for up to 20 guests. Peter would almost put on ballet tights to get that type of service. He was a workaholic. He was absolutely mortified to fly. He would sit like this on a plane with his head buried in his lap, white face, all over the world because he got big fees. And he also, if you remember, he was taught the choreography for all of the great Russian ballets. Well, because of that, he got big fees because he choreographed them all. And every time they were performed anywhere in the world, he made money. He went to his money managers. He says, I don't want to pay any taxes. And he was very, very frugal in some ways. And the only things he bought were like antiques and property. Unlike you and me, his money manager was the head of the Rothschild Bank in Switzerland. So when he died of AIDS at age 54, he was worth, in today's money, $40 million, which for a ballet dancer, that's Nureyev. I mean, Baryshnikov had that kind of money, but he was also a big movie star. He was also very astute because when he died, most of the money was sequestered away in his foundation. So he actually owned nothing, and the foundation never had to pay taxes. He was very savvy with money. Wow. He was a movie star briefly. He started a movie about the silent film star Valentino, and also in a movie with Natasha Kinski called Exposed, but he wasn't. His charisma on stage, which was probably the greatest of anybody of all time, did not translate well to the screen. Most people think that the Beatles were the one that started the long hair trend. No, it was Nureyev. He was the one who started the trend in the glitterati set, and it passed down to the Beatles and everybody else. He was the first. Now, you know, Elizabeth Taylor died a few years ago. She was the last of Hollywood glamour. There is no glamour nowadays. There was glamour in his life. All of his friends were uber glamorous. He hung out with the likes of Onassis, his future wife Jackie Kennedy, her even more glamorous sister Princess Lee Radziwill. I love this outfit he has on. Yves Saint Laurent, who was the king of the fashion industry, the breathtaking Tab Hunter. He was hanging out with people the likes of which you just don't see anymore. This was Marie Helene de Rothschild, and it was through her that he gained entree to the most glamorous society in the world, Parisian upper class. Marie Helene de Rothschild makes Kim Kardashian look like a bastard at a family reunion. Now, I'm going to show you pictures of his homes. And one thing to keep in mind, remember again, I said he came from the slums. He taught himself all about art. He ended up owning old master paintings. You can't even buy those nowadays. All of his antiques, everything in his homes he bought, but then he would have designers to do them. So I'm going to show you some of his 7 homes, which he actually rarely visited, a lot of them, because he was traveling around working all the time. This was his London home. He was actually in London a good bit because he worked with the Royal Ballet. And this home was from 1725 with 6 bedrooms. And 3 of his homes were all from the 1700s. Wouldn't that be nice? This is the Wordburner Estate in Virginia, which is interesting because it is from the Revolutionary period. It had 13 rooms, 240 acres, and he had big plans for it. But he passed away before he was actually able to carry it all out. This is Le Serenus, which was his archipelago that he owned off of Amalfi, the most beautiful part of Italy. It had a tower from 1300. He had it sort of gutted and retiled in Spanish tiles from the 1800s. This is the tower. And there's even a movie about this place. Do you remember the sirens in Greek mythology? This is the islands. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? These are the tiled bedrooms. Now, this is the one that, oh, hell's bells. It's not working the way I want it to. See, part of the problem is I need to angle that thing more. This is his Parisian apartment that he built when he was head of the Paris Ballet, which he virtually, completely turned it on its head and made it a great company. And he hired Renzo Mongiordano, who was the interior designer for the Rothschilds and for Versace and all of those, the Princess Laura as well. The home is what made me fall in love with Nureyev. It was just so glamorous. Somebody said, why do you have all the nudes in the dining room instead of in the bedroom? But it was on top floor overlooking the Seine and the Louvre. Isn't that, life is hard. Life is hard. It was actually not that big of a place, but it was just glamorous. You could only done like 6 people there, but still. Now he went on in his career to work with the Muppets, which was one of the biggest splashes he made on TV. And he had a duet with Miss Piggy, but I've included in here a little clip of him interacting with Miss Piggy, which is kind of fun. I don't know what the volume is like. I might have to adjust it. He does a pas de deux with Miss Piggy, this big old fat. What should be about that?
Holy maracas! Yes. Hello. Don't you talk to strangers?
Depends on how strange the stranger is.
Wonderful sense of humor you have. And you have a marvelous mind. And the other parts ain't bad either.
Just very good. Last week I've been dancing with Natalia Makarova. And today I'm in the stew room with the lady pig.
Yes. But isn't it heaven?
I don't think heaven is this one. It's more like the other place.
Well, if you're warm, maybe you're overdressed.
No, I'm fine.
Maybe I'm overdressed.
That's what I'm leaving.
Oh, sweetie, you just got here.
And then they start singing. The thing I'm going to close out with, which is, to me, one of the most interesting vignettes in his fascinating life. As I have said, I think it's the most fascinating life I've ever read about. When he was in his 50s, his body was completely wrecked from dancing for 45 years. And he was very unhealthy because of AIDS. He had had AIDS for 14 years. He stopped dancing and started teaching himself to become an orchestra conductor, which is a very difficult job. And he was actually making inroads into that and was conducting for orchestras when he actually passed away. But it's just so, he never would stop. He never stopped dancing, even when his body was giving out. He was driven. Very interesting man, and I've enjoyed sharing this about him, and I will show you his New York apartment in probably a couple months. Thank you very much.